Good morning. Hi. So how many of you are totally ready for the spring and the warm weather? How many of you are ready for the air conditioning to really be turned on in the building? All right. We might be the same people. I'm not. Some of you are like, no, it's cold enough. This is what it looks like to live in a church family. We can disagree and still all be in the same room together. So, yeah, nuh-uh, that's right. We are starting a new series this morning. The new series is called Slogan, and this series is going to take us into Easter. All right, so I was looking at the calendar going, oh, that's not as far away as I was thinking. And so this series is going to take us all the way into Easter, and it's based upon an idea that I heard from a speaker at the Right Now conference, a guy by the name of Kyle Idleman. Some of you who were there at the Right Now conference with me, I mean, he had a very convicting message that I am basing a lot of this understanding on because it was great. To get us in the understanding of this slogan, I'm going to ask you a few different slogans and see if you know the company that they represent. All right, so the first one, just do it. All right, that one was easy. Can you hear me now? Some of you are like, it's a phone company, that's all I got. Verizon is the one that did that. Let me think, there's other ones up here. This one's really hard. Nothing runs like a deer. John Deere, okay. Good to the last drop? Okay, some of you are like, coffee, somewhere in there. Taste the rainbow. Hey, y'all got that one a whole lot quicker. Think different. Some of you are like, not a clue. Apple, they don't. It's really an undercurrent of with their slogan, but it's actually a pretty strong one. Think different. There's one other I had that I was going to give to you. Have it your way. Burger King. Did I hear McDonald's? For that one, I just would have done da-da-da-da-da, you would have gotten that one. All right, slogans are a way, like the funny thing is, you got most of those right, not because you're just that astute, and not because you're just simply that smart, although some of you probably are. The thing is, you got it because they work. Slogans are simply a way of reminding the people about a thing that this group is trying to get you to remember. And it works. It works so well. I mean, that's why I started with Nike, I think Just Do It. They have capitalized on this slogan, and they've done such a great job advertising. Now, often slogans are really just considered important for advertising. And so I don't want us to get the idea that all we're doing in this series is trying to figure out a way of advertising. That's not the point. That's not the point that I'm trying to go for. See, a good slogan is really a mantra that a company will use in order to connect you to an identity they want you to see. So, if we spiritualize this, a godly slogan is really just a godly mantra in which we are reminded of godly truths, especially about our identity. That's really what this whole series is about, is using godly slogans to help us remember who God is telling us we are, to remember who we are. We don't want to use slogans as an advertising scheme, nor do we want to use it as a business's best practice. Rather, we want it to be something significant that's coming straight from Scripture that is reminding us of godly things. Lucky for us, Jesus liked using slogans. Okay, maybe he didn't use slogans in the proper sense of the word, but he used a thing called metaphor. And a metaphor is a good slogan is a metaphor, and they are tied together. And so Jesus liked using metaphors. He says the fields are white for harvest. And he says the kingdom of heaven is like, which is a simile, but it's similar to a metaphor, as you can get by the name. So in this series, we're going to look at some of the metaphors that Jesus used in his teaching and let them continue to inspire us, to inform us, and to encourage us to be as we are called to be, becoming gospel slogans, hopefully, in our lives. So the first one we're going to look at is going to come from John 15. John 15, each of the Gospels tells a similar story of Jesus. They arrange the details maybe a little bit different, but John is one of the most fascinating because with John, he spends a good chunk of his Gospel account from the Last Supper on, like maybe from the triumphal entry of Jesus on, which is a short time. You're only talking about a little over a week that he spends most of his Gospel account putting the stories and talking about. John 15, this is just after the Last Supper. Last Supper that Jesus has with his disciples there in the upper room, and he washes their feet, and he goes through several of those things, reminding yourself what's happening. So they have shared this Passover meal together. They have sung their hymn, and they're on their way out. Okay? That's what's going on. They are on their way to the Garden of Gethsemane. Now, Jesus knows what's going to happen. Jesus is fully aware that in the garden he's going to be betrayed. Soon after that he's going to be put on trial. Soon after that he's going to be put up on a cross and he's going to die. Now he knows that's not the end of the story, but man, if you were within that short time frame of knowing this, that's going to all of a sudden got to be in the back of your mind, or it's going to come in the forefront of your mind. But not only does he know what's about to happen to him, he knows what's about to happen to his disciples. See, his disciples who have been following him for about 3 years now are about to lose him physically. They're about to not see him around anymore, and they're going to have this commission, we call it the Great Commission, given to them that they are going to strive to accomplish without Jesus around physically. And he knows that's going to be a tough task. And so, as they're walking, as they're heading to the Garden of Gethsemane, they're passing orchards, they're passing vineyards, and Jesus decides to take this moment, this short time that he has, to encourage them and to give them a metaphor. He says this: I am the vine, you are the branches. Those who remain in me and I in them will produce much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. Anyone who does not remain in me is thrown away like a useless branch and withers. Such branches are gathered into a pile to be burned. But if you remain in me and my words remain in you, you may ask for anything you want and it will be granted. When you produce much fruit, you will be my true disciples. This brings great glory to my Father. Notice, Jesus doesn't give them a 5-year plan. He doesn't say, okay, well, year 1, here's what it's going to look like, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. He doesn't give them a 10-year plan. He doesn't give them a plan of things to do before 100 AD. He doesn't even give them a to-do list. What he gives them is a metaphor, a slogan, if you will. I'm going to rephrase it a little bit. Be the branch. That's what he tells them. I'm the vine. You're the branches. Be the branch. That's your job. That's our job, to be the branch. A branch, by definition says it's a part of a tree or plant that grows from the trunk or vine. In other words, the very first thing that you have to understand about being a branch is that a branch is connected to the tree, to the vine. The very first job that Jesus tells his disciples to do in this slogan of be the branch is to remain. Some of your translations might say abide. But did you notice how many times he says that in that short little piece that we read? Expand it just a little bit more and cover this whole section of Scripture. And this word abide or remain is used at least 9 times. That should give us a clue that Jesus is telling us something. Remain connected. Our job as a branch, the only way that we can actually be a branch is if we stay connected to the vine. Spiritually, Jesus isn't talking then about going and being a tree hugger. What he's saying is be connected to Jesus. I am the vine, he says. See, here's the thing. It doesn't matter as a church what we do right if we get this wrong. What I mean by that is we can do a lot of great things, but if we do not do it connected to Jesus, we miss the very heart, soul, and life juice of what we're doing. We become a country club. We become just a society that has members that come in and sit and do nothing. But when we remain connected, then we start doing something. You see, notice that the emphasis, whenever he says, I'm the vine, you are the branches, the emphasis is not first on the fruit. The emphasis is not first on production. Rather, it's on connection. Because it's connection that leads to production. The only way a branch can bear fruit is if it's connected to the vine. The only way that we can produce good, godly things is if we are connected to the good God. No other way. So we have to remain connected. Now, a lot of times we get this backwards in our thinking. Sometimes some of us will think that our production earns us a connection. In other words, we try to lift our voice up to God and say, God, look at all the things that I have done for you. Look at all the things that I've done in your name. And we think that that should earn us some kind of spot of connection to Jesus. But that's not how it works. The connection comes first. Production is what follows. See, some of us, though, begin to think it's not just about that. We begin to think, I don't need to be connected to produce my own fruit. I can do things on my own. I can do things just fine. In fact, I have made it through this life doing things my way just fine. And that may be true, but God doesn't call you to fine. He calls you to excellence. He calls you to something greater that you cannot achieve upon your own, but many of us, we still try to do it on our own. And sometimes we begin to think that we are the vine. We're no longer a branch anymore. We are the self-sustaining vine. And we try to live that way. And maybe we try to be the vine for other people. Maybe we try to be the vine just in our own lives. But I have to tell you this. I have tried to be the vine in my life. Maybe you can relate. What I've learned, it's a really hard thing to be. Because whenever I put all the pressure upon myself to be able to produce all the things that need to happen, I go down to two basic emotions. One is I get cocky, or two, I get insecure. I'm either going to get cocky in myself or I'm going to be insecure, and both of these are not what God has desired, because Jesus is sitting there saying, hey, you're just a branch. Remember your place, man. Kind of reminds me of a story about Moses. Moses led the people through the wilderness. You know most of the story of Moses. The story comes in Numbers 20 that Moses is leading the people through the wilderness again, and they start complaining again, and they're thirsty this time. And so Moses has a conversation with God, and God says, all right, here's what I want you to do. I want you to speak to that rock over there, and then I'm going to make some water come out of it, and it's going to give the people the drink that they need. All right. So Moses goes before the people, and he decides to ad-lib a little bit. And he says, must we bring water from this rock? And he says a few other things, and then he doesn't exactly do what God says. He takes a stick and he whacks the rock, and God still honors it and brings forth water for the people. But what happens immediately after that is God says, Moses, since you did not regard me as holy, since you didn't do what I said, you can't enter the promised land. Now, I always thought that the punishment that Moses received was because he didn't do what God said. That he, instead of talking, he smacked. And I thought that was the problem. But I began to think and realize that more so what it was is the use of the word we. Moses said before the people, must we bring forth water from this rock? And I kind of envision God saying, whoa, Moses, we? Like, when was the last time you did this, Moses? When was the last time you ever just spoke to a rock, hit a rock, or anything like that on your own power, and all of a sudden water pours out? We? No. You're just a branch. Don't forget it. I'm the vine. Jesus says at the start of this passage that he's dealing with in verse 1, he says, I am the true vine. I like that picture that it gives. I'm the true vine because it gives the indication that there are imitation vines. There are fake vines. There are all sorts of people and all sorts of things that are striving to get us to attach to them. They promise this good life. They promise so many wonderful things. Ever seen a beer commercial? Oh, that's a vine. It's tempting for some, saying, you want this good life? But it can't deliver. That's an imitation. It's a cheap imitation. But so many of us have bought into imitations. Some of them are well-meaning. Some of you have bought into the imitation vine of your spouse. What I mean by that is you have connected to your spouse, expecting your spouse to be the fulfillment that you need in this relationship. That they're your nutrition, that they're the ones who are going to fill up your cup. And if your cup is not full, then it's their fault. And you think that's the problem's with them. Some of you have allowed your kids to be your vine. It's all about what the kids what they're doing. That their schedule dictates everything else. That their desires, that everything from them, what they give should fill my cup up with joy. And we're striving to live vicariously through our kids, which is not fair to us nor them. Some of you have simply tried to be the vine for other people. Oh, just attach to me. You'll be good. Some of you have used money as your vine. Some of you have used, you name it. I'll make it real simple, because Jesus does. If your vine ain't Jesus, it's an imitation vine. If what you are connected to is not the true vine, then you've missed the point. See, some of us have totally figured out, well, man, I need to be the branch. But we've then attached ourselves to the wrong vine. Some of us still struggle with being attached to anything. Here's a thought real fast for you. Do you know what you call a branch that is no longer connected to a vine? My daughter knows. She's all over this. It's a stick. It's all. But I got to tell you, the slogan, be the stick, is not compelling. And he's like, the only thing that we use, the stick in the mud, like most of our analogies of a stick is not good. They're not great. But that's what happens. So this morning, just to help illustrate this, I actually brought a stick. Not that I don't think you don't know what one looks like, but, figured sermon illustrations are great. It's a stick. Here's how you know it's a stick. It's not attached to anything. All right, it's just a stick. Now, on this stick, you might see some fruit. All right, good fruit. Some really good fruit for some of us. All right, but if you got a little closer, you might notice I simply tied this plastic fruit on. That's all it is. Plastic fruit. Oh, it may look good from a distance. In fact, some of you, I would dare say, might even have similar plastic fruit somewhere on display in your house. It's not for eating. It's just to look good. I got to be honest. That's a job that I'm okay with. Hey, Mitch, go stand there and look good. Got it. Do I have to do anything? Nope, just look good. I'm all over that job. Not saying I can accomplish it well, but what I'm saying is that's the easy job. Mitch, we want you to go to Ecuador and go, get poured on in the night. You need to hear stories of what happened this past week. No, can I just stand over and look good? Because what I want is this. But see, the best thing, the only thing that you can hope for from an imitation branch is imitation fruit. It's the best that you can hope for. That's all you're going to get from an imitation branch is imitation fruit. But there's a lot of us that do that right there. Obviously, it's not secure. That's awesome. There's a lot of us that this is exactly what we settle for. Oh yeah, we need to be the branch. And we show up to church. And like a peacock, we show our fruit. Oh yeah, I'm good. Look at this fruit. Look at what I got. Don't get too close though. Don't try to take a bite of this because this fruit, it's not going to satisfy. But man, we try to look the part and look good, don't we? See, this is the danger about being a stick. So many of us have settled for being a stick when it comes to our spiritual life. We have settled for just looking good with no real purpose. And this stuff will not satisfy. It will not fulfill you. So if you want fulfilled, you can't just have imitation fruit from your imitation branch connected to an imitation vine. That's not going to work. The only way that we're going to have fruit that actually satisfies is if we are connected to the satisfactory one, the only one who can satisfy. In fact, Jesus says it this way in verse 11, I have told you these things so that you will be filled with my joy. Yes, your joy will overflow. This is all in connection of the same story. He's saying, be the branch. I'm telling you, it is good to be the branch because your joy, which happens to be one of the fruit of the Spirit mentioned in Galatians, the joy is going to overflow. How many of you could use your joy overflowing this morning? How many of you would be all right if your cup was overflowing with joy every day? You know what Jesus is saying? Be the branch. Be the branch connected to me. I will fill your joy. In Jesus, we find what we need. But he connects it even further. Going back to verse 5. It says, I'm the vine, you are the branches. Those who remain in me and I in them will produce much fruit. So maybe we should ask ourselves next is, how much fruit are you producing? If you're attached to the vine, then you should be producing fruit. So I'm going to challenge you. Look to the person beside you and just simply ask them, how much fruit are you producing? Some of you are like, I'm not going to ask them that. Maybe better yet, ask them, how much fruit am I producing? What do you see in me? How much fruit am I producing? Because the thing is, Jesus doesn't simply say, hey, you remain in me and I in you, and we're all good. No, he says, you remain in me and I in you, you will produce not just a little fruit, you're going to produce much fruit. So how much fruit are you producing? Now some of you may be thinking, hey, whoa, Mitch, you're getting close to stomping on my toes here. Let me get a little bit closer. Let me remove all doubt for a second. I'm stomping on your toes. You may think to yourself, hey, I'm in attendance here. I have given money, I have given some time, I have done some good things. Isn't that enough? Now that may be one of the worst questions that we can ask when it comes to spiritual things. You never hear Jesus say, well, you know what? I've taught some good lessons, I've healed some people. Isn't that enough? Hey, no. No. This demands sacrifice. This demands a whole lot more. So maybe to help illustrate, is it enough? I want to give you another stretching of this metaphor for the vine and the branch. If you're familiar with, especially tomato plants, you might know this, but how many of you are familiar with the sucker branch? You know this concept? You know this idea? Okay, sucker branch. It is a branch that connects itself at the base of another branch in the vine. And it sucks. That's all it does. It sucks the nutrients away from the branch that actually could produce fruit. The thing is, the branch that could produce fruit can't produce fruit because the sucker branch is sucking all the nutrients out itself. Yet here's the kicker. The sucker branch does not produce fruit itself. It robs itself and others around. Thing is, spiritually speaking, we have a whole bunch of suckers. We have people that come in wanting only what they can get out of God. We have people come in that are wanting only what they can get out of a church, and they aren't concerned at all what they can give. See, it's not just about connecting to receive, it's connecting so that we can give. The whole job of being a branch is to produce the fruit. That's the point. That's what Jesus is saying. This is how it works. Be the branch. Be the branch. So often, we get satisfied with being an imitation, or we get satisfied with being a sucker. And Jesus has so much more for us. Because when you've tasted the true fruit of the Spirit, you can't help but have joy. You can't help but have peace. You can't help but have love when you've tasted the true fruit. So not only do we have to be careful about being a bunch of sticks, we also have to be careful about being a bunch of suckers. Because it's not about being a sticker. It's not about being a stick or a sucker or a sticker to put them together. So the question is, how do you know then that you're a true branch? Well, it's in the fruit. It's only in the fruit. You may have fruit in your life that you've produced. And I want you to just kind of evaluate that for a second. Think for a moment the fruit of your labor, the fruit of your marriage, the fruit of your life. Take a quick evaluation. If of that fruit of your life, you can, without hesitation or even pretty confidently, say, I produced this. There is something that I did. I helped. I did this. You may have fruit, but it's going to, dare I say, it's going to be more imitation fruit. It's going to be like Moses whenever he says, must we bring forth water from this rock? But if you can look at the fruit of your life and you can say, there ain't no way that this could have happened had God not intervened. If the only way that you can look at this fruit and recognize that the reason it's there is some explanation with God in it, now you're onto something. Now you are starting to produce the vine kind of fruit. And Jesus says, I am the vine. You're the branches. Those who remain in me, I remain in them, will produce much fruit. So this morning in your evaluation, if you looked at your life and it was pretty, wow, that's really all about me, I got an invitation for you. Stop it. Stop making everything about you. Start buying into something bigger. Because whenever it's all about you, you know what happens whenever you're gone? That's it. You have nothing left that would actually last. You have nothing that people tell stories about later. You have nothing worth following. But see, when you produce fruit that cannot be pointed back of saying, wow, Mitch did this, or you did that. But you have fruit that says, I don't know how in the world Mitch did this. It must be God working in him. That right there lasts. That's worthwhile fruit. So this morning, if in your evaluation of yourself, you're like, man, I need to connect back to Jesus because I have been the stick trying to do my own thing, producing imitation fruit for way too long. Jesus says, come on. Give your life to him. He will graft you in to his wonderful tree. So if you're in need of a whole lot more Jesus because you have been satisfied with less than, I want to invite you that you can't imagine the fullness of joy for those who are fully in Christ. We welcome you to join. If If you have any needs, if you have any prayers, would you let it be known? Come as we stand and sing together.